Want to know how Canada's top industry leaders feel about creating significant wealth in the world around them? Find out with me, Thane Stenner, founder of Stenner Wealth Partners at Canaccord Genuity and host of the new Smart Wealth podcast, available on iHeart or anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. Subscribe now. Hello, I'm Thane Stenner, founder of Stenner Wealth Partners at Canaccord Genuity Wealth Management and host of the new BNN Bloomberg Smart Wealth with Thane Stenner podcast, which is now available on iHeartRadio, Spotify, or wherever you choose to listen. We also upload all of our episodes at our website at www.stennerwealthpartners.com/BNN Bloomberg podcasts. So the topic of today is going to be around family dynamics pertaining to wealth. You might think that wealthy families stay wealthy for life, but that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, Harvard studies have shown that around 70% of all wealthy families lose their capital or wealth by the second generation, and a staggering 90% lose it by the third generation. This is often called from shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. And if you look globally, it's a phenomena around how families that have created significant wealth, that there comes with it a significant level of challenge to maintain and protect it and educate the next generations. So clearly, keeping that wealth takes a lot of effort, including careful estate planning, difficult family conversations, business acumen, and yes, investment stewardship as well. So this is our second episode, and I happen to be having the blessing and the pleasure of being able to interview somebody that is an expert in the ins and outs of family dynamics and family wealth, Patricia Saputo. Patricia belongs to the famous Saputo family, which founded Saputo Inc., a global supplier of cheese and dairy products, and is probably enjoyed by many North Americans today because it's one of the top cheese and dairy products companies in the world. She's also sat on the company's board of directors, along with many other boards currently. And she's also dedicated most of her life, currently, professional life, to the family office that manages her family's wealth. She started that family office in 1998, and she's been a pioneer in the single family office space, where she's managed money on behalf of her overall family. She's also launched programs, the Family Wealth program at Concordia, Queen's University, and is now the co-founder and executive chairperson of Chrysalia, a firm that's in essence a chief learning and development office for enterprising and successful families. Their whole job is to try to help families bridge through the generations and equip the next generations to be their very best. So Patricia, I just wanted to thank you for joining me today, and I'm very excited to be having this interview with you.
Thank you.
Excellent. So let's get started. So let's begin with, kind of I don't want to say a softball question, but a fun question. What would you say are the 1 or 2 things that you've been most proud of, personally and professionally, that your family has accomplished, and why?
So Thane, before I begin, I do want to thank you for having me on this podcast. And I do want to say that Bruce is definitely a tough act to follow. And I congratulate you for being able to get him to be your first guest on a podcast. And I just want to make sure that you're not going to be asking me my age the way you asked him.
No,
but I
will
am
not.
surprised, though, that we were born in the same year.
There must be something kinetic in the stars on that one.
So back to your question. So I guess what I'm most proud of on the family front is, the fact that my family had immigrated from Sicily to Canada back in the 1950s, which was right after World War II. And, being able to be as successful as they've been over the years in creating Saputo Inc., to the point of it going public back in 1997. And, being able to create that sustainability of a company, which is now, not just in Canada, but it's, worldwide. When we look at Canada, US, Argentina, Australia, and now the UK. So it's something to be proud of. And I think, when they say you try to fit into your parents' size 22 shoes, and you wonder, it's like, okay, how can you do that? Or your family's, size 22 shoes. It's not an easy act to follow. Why a lot of next gens, are always wondering, how could they be as successful? And it truly is, trying to find, what your success is and what it means to you. So I think that's what I'm most proud of with my family.
Excellent. Well, excellent. Thank you for sharing that. So one of the questions that I think comes up a lot is, does significant wealth over time change people or change their outlook on things? So the next question is around, has the level of wealth that's been created by Saputo going public, I think in 1997, if I'm not mistaken, and it's a multi-billion-dollar enterprise today. Has it affected how you think and relate to money today?
I would say yes, of course. And if I look at it, I guess in general terms, we kind of have this belief that when we think about wealth, we think about our early recollections of that money talk, that you have. And it becomes your belief system, really becomes and sets the blueprints as to how you feel and relate to money. And when, children have that tendency to ask their parents, are we rich? What has been the response you received? Was it a positive one or a negative one? Was it something that you speak about or not? And has it ever been brought up again? Then there's the other side of, are you an immigrant to wealth or are you a native to wealth? Immigrant to wealth is usually that first generation, in my parents' generation, that have not only immigrated to a new country, but they immigrated to wealth because it wasn't something that they had an abundance of, especially after the war. Yes, they had the money to be able to, pay the bills and do the basics. But my generation is more native to wealth because we grew up with meaningful privileges in our lives. And being third generation, because the company did start with my grandparents' generation with my parents' aunts and uncles, the third generation already, we were living in nice homes, we went to private schools, drove in fancy cars, went on vacation. So already kind of sets the pace as to, what money is, and understanding that, we had certain privileges that other people didn't have. So it did become to a point where, studying to become a CPA made me realize that there's great responsibilities that come with having wealth and maintaining it. And I mean, it does remind me, and I always tell people of the line in the Spider-Man movie where the uncle tells Spider-Man that with great power comes great responsibilities. And I always go back to that because that's exactly what I feel. And managing, the family's family office has always put me in that predicament, is that there's a huge responsibility here. And then how do you transition that to the next generation to make them understand what wealth and responsibilities it comes with it?
Excellent. Very well said too. So pivoting to, what are some of the activities today that you're doing that are bringing you the most enjoyment professionally and personally?
So professionally, I'm giving a lot of talks and sitting on a lot of panels on a variety of conferences. And I really do enjoy sharing my knowledge with others. I think it's a natural thing for me to share with others. There's also becoming entrepreneurial. I never thought I'd be entrepreneurial, as co-founding Chrysalia. And yes, they consider me as the chairperson. It was either chair or chairperson. We went with chairperson. So co-founded that with 5 other partners. So, it's been great, getting to know them and building up on that and pioneering in a space that's actually gaining momentum. And it's fun to be a part of that. But more so on the personal side, it's being a mother of 3 boys between the ages of 25, 23, and 16. and really having adult conversations with them, and talking about their future, navigating through their life, their career, their business, money matters, investments, like all the fun stuff that when they're young, even though you try to talk to them about it, it's like beep. But now it's interactive, the questions are there, and sometimes like, hey mom, shush. They have something to say. So it's let hear me out. It's not about you right now. It's like, okay, fine. And it's just amazing to have this stage with my boys.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thanks for sharing that. So I know at this point, there's a couple visuals that we'll be putting up on the screen here that kind of demonstrate some principles or things or lessons that you've personally learned in your life. So if you don't mind, the first one's going to be an elephant picture. So I'd love you to kind of talk to us and the audience as to kind of what's the meaning behind that. And then we'll go to the second one, which is the 6 and 9. So over to you on this one.
So when we talk about what lessons we've learned in life, for me, a major lesson has been about perspectives. And how you see life in one way, somebody else sees life in a different way. So actually there's a fable, and the story of the elephant and the 6 blind men is a very old fable. And it's basically on perspectives and what happens. So in this picture, you have an elephant that's been brought to 6 blind men who, obviously being blind, have never seen an elephant before. So they all got to touch a different part of the elephant. So you see the one who's touching the ear, and he's saying, oh, wow, this is like a carpet because it's so flimsy and you can move it around. But yet the one says, what carpet? What are you talking about? He's the one at the leg and saying, but this, it feels like a tree trunk. It's sturdy and it's hard. And, the other one starts to feel the body and it says, no, it's more like a wall. It's very firm and hard. And, while the one in the back who's touching the tail is saying, wow, okay, but this is more like the tail is a rope. So you're feeling it as a rope. Like, what are you guys talking about? You're completely off. You obviously don't know what an elephant looks like. Then there's the one at the trunk and said, no, it's not like a rope. It's more like a snake, because he's touching the trunk and he's feeling it, that it's stronger, more snake-like. And then there's the one that's at the tusks saying, no, these are pointy. It's like an arrow. It's not. Like, what are you guys talking about? Then by then, the elephant walks away, and the 6 blind men are having this argument amongst themselves and say, well, you don't know what you're talking about. It's more a carpet or a tree trunk or a snake or a rope. And basically what the moral of the story is that without putting all their information together and aligning what each one of them felt, they can get a better picture of the entirety of what an elephant is than just their individual part that they actually felt. So we all need to put our stories together, and especially in the family front, being at different ages, you lived life with different perspectives, with different things that came at you, depending on, what you lived through and what the family was going through at the time, and what did you know versus not know, what were you told versus not told, or you just didn't think anything was going on because you were too young to realize what was going on. Yep. So those perspectives are very important, especially in the family realm. And then the second picture, which is the one where you've got 2 people standing across from each other, looking down at a symbol on the floor. One looks at it and says it's a 6, and the other one's looking at it and says, no, it's a 9. And if you read the bottom caption, it says, just because you're right, it doesn't mean I am wrong. You just haven't seen life from my side. And that's so true to families and in enterprising families, because there's always a different perspective, and somebody else can come in and look at that symbol and think it's a letter G and says, you're both wrong. It looks like a G to me. So, it doesn't mean because, one person is right, it doesn't mean the other person is wrong. And that's why with the life we each lead and live and the perspectives that you have, it really is individualistic. And if you want to understand your family members and be able to grow together in your enterprising family world, you have to understand that there are different perspectives. And that's a huge learning.
2 great analogies, actually, and visual analogies that I think can people can really walk away with a better understanding of dynamics, whether it's in relationships, family relationships, or business relationships. So at this point, we're going to just take a quick break, just a few minute break, just to grab some water and whatnot. But we'll be back shortly. Want to know how Canada's top industry leaders feel about creating significant wealth in the world around them? Find out with me, Thane Stenner, founder of Stenner Wealth Partners at Canaccord Genuity and host of the new Smart Wealth podcast, available on iHeart or anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. Subscribe now. Excellent first segment, Patricia. Thank you for sharing your thoughts so far. On to some other questions here for you. So what are some of the things that you'd like to focus on and accomplish yourself over the next decade, professionally and personally?
So I guess personally, it would be, I guess, my role in the single family office for my immediate family, and looking at my succession plan and seeing how we can evolve the single family office into the branches and concentrate on the learning journey and how we're transitioning in the wealth to the next generation, and then seeing how we can potentially onboard next generation or provide them with the learning journeys that they need to understand, the wealth, and, just continue that over to the next generation, which is actually in line with professionally in what I'm doing with Chrysalia, in getting more enterprising families the help that they need to be adaptive and have the capacity to act as a family as a whole. So similar to what I'm doing, day to day with my own family, to bring that to others as well.
Excellent. I asked the same question of Bruce last month, and I'll ask the same question of various guests along the way. But what are some of the values or principles that you try to bring to your work and family life each day?
I would say happiness. For me, life with happiness is a life that has meaning, because you find meaning when you have a passion about something. And a person develops a passion with something when you're curious about a particular topic. And then this leads you to have purpose in life. And then you do the full circle, because then once you have purpose, then you feel fulfilled, and in the end brings you happiness. So it just does the whole cycle. And those are the values I distill on my kids.
Oh, well said. I've known you for about a decade now. I can't believe it's been that long, but it's felt very short. But one of the happiest times I think I've seen you in is fishing.
Yes.
With your kids and also your husband, Angelo. Mm-hmm. And I must tell the audience that, Patricia, incredibly talented in many ways, but also very sharp dresser. And in fact, fishing up on the north coast of British Columbia up towards Alaska, I've seen her decked out so well. And the fish that that were attracted to their boat were also super colorful the days she'd catch a lot of fish. So I agree with you. It's life is about experiences, and also just trying to find that purpose, right? So important. So as far as wealth goes, what are you seeing that it's providing to you today? To you, not your family, to you today in your life?
I have to say choices. It really gives me the choice to do what I want, when I want, how I want, and with who I want. They say life happens when you plan something else. So when you're doing whatever you're doing, and you know that, you don't have to, you can really do it because you want to. It's not that thing of saying I can't. It's really the thing of saying I don't want, and doing the things that really are purposeful. So I can live a more purposeful life, because the things that I choose to do are things that have more meaning. And as I said before, it brings also more happiness because it's more purposeful. And I always tell my boys that, if they do what they enjoy doing every day of their life, they won't work a day in their life.
Yes. Yeah, they'll simply enjoy, and they'll be passionate about what they get up to do each morning. So the only investment related question, given the fact the topic is around wealth, to ask of you, and you don't have to give specifics per se, but If you were investing, for example, $10 million today, what areas or sectors would you deploy to and why? And I'm asking this because, as COO of your family's investment office or family office, you see a lot of things, you talk to a lot of people, you're kind of in a nexus of information. So I'm just really curious as to, from today looking out the next decade, kind of how would you deploy that amount of capital in percentage terms?
Okay, that's a $10 million question.
Yes, it is.
So, I mean, today you're hearing a lot more about people, being socially impactful and how they invest. There's all the ESG, the environmental social governance side of things. There's so many different things, that we're seeing: cybersecurity, cyber attacks, what's happening with cryptocurrency, what's happening with quantum computing in the future. There's so many areas that are new and that we see have been coming to the forefront a lot over the past couple of years. And I think COVID has exacerbated things even more so and has brought them more real. And COVID itself, because of the environmental issues and the medical side and things like that. But when I look at investments, I like to look at investments in looking at investing in people, because I invest alongside people who know what they know and what they're best in class in, and the industry that they know best, because I can't know all the different industries and all the ins and outs of everything that's going on out there. So it really is looking at the right team, the right people who know industries to invest alongside them. And I just have to say, my 10 million is on Bruce Linton.
He's going to enjoy listening to that. That's for sure. Yeah, he's definitely an extraordinary entrepreneur, no doubt. So that's the one bet. That's kind of where you'd go.
One bet. It's on Bruce.
Okay. Well,
he's done well for us in the past.
Yeah.
I don't doubt he won't do well for himself in the future.
I would agree, and I think that's a very good point. So, I think at this point, what we'll do is we'll take another quick break and grab some water here, and we'll start back up in a few minutes. Want to know how Canada's top industry leaders feel about creating significant wealth in the world around them? Find out with me, Thane Stenner, founder of Stenner Wealth Partners at Canaccord Genuity, and host of the new Smart Wealth podcast, available on iHeart or anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. Subscribe now. Excellent. So we're back after the break, and I'm with Patricia Saputo here, and got only a few questions to go to finish off this podcast, but this is where we get into the even meatier stuff. So have some fun. So Patricia, in your professional career and life, what have been some of the hardest lessons that you've learned along the way, and how have they affected you? And I realize this is it's a public podcast. I get that, but I think, at the end of the day, everything I've observed in my career and just with people I've dealt with, everybody goes through challenges of different types. And if they say they don't, they're either lying or they haven't ventured out their front door very much. So, what would you say have been some of the hardest lessons that you've learned personally and professionally?
So the one that comes top of mind, or the first one that I think about, is having lived life with the last name that is eponymous with a well-known cheese manufacturing company, that I find has been both a blessing and a challenge in my life. A blessing because the name has been very reputable, and it is associated with high quality products and great success. But a challenge because people just assumed my life was easy and full of opportunities, and also that they felt that they knew who I was. And the branding of the company that is associated with success and quality and high expectations, it brought high expectations also for the family members. So you have to kind of, break it down, the assumptions that people have made about me. And not everybody is comfortable to do so. Because of my professional background, I was able to, take that and let people know, this is who I am. I'm a professional. I don't know about milking cows, and I don't know about making cheese, and I don't know, because people just assume we're farmers. And it's like, well, no, that part is left to the farmers, and we buy the milk from the farmers. We bring it, to the company. Then the company has, the people who make the cheese. My father was a cheesemaker, and he knows all about that. For me, it wasn't that. So that to me was the hardest lesson. The other one is, in terms of the perspectives that I was talking about before, it's also about the different hats that I wear. So I'm not only, the daughter or the sister, the aunt or the mother. I'm also the professional, the consultant, the tax advisor, the estate planner. And sometimes I felt that as I'm talking to different family members, they're seeing that family hat on, but really I was talking with the hat of a professional. And, something as simple as, as a tax planner, we have this ability of paying out tax-free dividends from our investment holding company through what we call the capital dividend account, the CDA. And, when my parents agreed, oh, yes, that's a good thing to do, declare the dividend. So my thing was, okay, on what class of shares? Because the investment holding company has different classes of shares. So when they look at me and they say, well, what do you mean, what class of shares? I go, well, who's going to get the dividend? Now they're not seeing me as a tax professional anymore. They're seeing me as a daughter who's trying to get a payout. It's like, okay, wait a minute. I'm not looking at this as, but I have to, get the resolution done to say, the dividends being paid out on what class of shares, because it has to go in the minute book. So it's that whole, professional side of things. So, that's one thing. And then the last thing I have to say, it's about, the hard lesson is about transitions. Transitioning in many different ways is where us as humans find ourselves in the most vulnerable state. Thane, did you know that lobsters could last forever? Apparently in their DNA, they have something that makes the cells mutate in a way that they could last forever. But what makes them at their most vulnerable state is when they get too big for their shell and they have to shed it. At that moment, they hide behind a rock. They try to make sure the predators don't see them or smell them, because that's when they're at their most vulnerable state. And what happens is, or if they get fished up by a great fisherman. But those transitions, those vulnerabilities in a family, as a family member goes through a vulnerability in their own life, whether it's medical, could be anything, that's when they need the support the most. And if the family could be there to protect them, then that's where they can come out of that vulnerable state being bigger and stronger, no different than the way the lobster, once they come out of that state and they get their new shell, they're bigger and stronger. So those transitions, vulnerabilities are the most important times where a family needs to be there for each other and to know how to grow purposefully together and help each other out, because that's what, at the end of the day, families want. It's to just help each other move up and work better together as a cohesive group.
Again, very well said. So, you mentioned, I was just getting tired even listening to how many different hats you have to wear. So how do you mentally train yourself to shift between different roles within a family construct, within a family business? Are there little tricks that you mentally say, okay, do I say a certain thing? Do I think a certain thing? How do you do that to help frame the discussion?
Well, I've learned that I needed to, as I'm having conversations with people, I start by saying, I'm talking to you as a sister, I'm talking to you as a consultant, or I'm talking to you as a tax professional. So I frame what I'm going to say. Sometimes as the conversation goes, you see that something's been misinterpreted, and it's like, okay, what just happened and how did you take it? Remember, I'm here as the tax consultant, or I'm here as a professional, because sometimes it's like, I might be able to do that, but has the other person understood that position? So it is very important to always go back and frame what you're saying, why you're saying it, so the other person doesn't misunderstand. It's not easy. It takes a lot of practice. I haven't mastered it, but it's important, I find, for people to understand why I'm saying what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I've met your family many times, and you've got four wonderful sisters, siblings, and they're all doing great things in their own right, and also your parents. So I can see in a successful, multi-dimensional Italian family, you'd have to really try to learn that skill set very well. So just maybe on a personal note too, what are maybe one or two things about yourself that very few people know about you? What would you say you could share that people don't necessarily know about you today that you want to share?
What I will go with is that I was a ballerina. Not many people know that I was a ballerina. And at age 11, I actually won a scholarship, or received a scholarship from Les Grands Ballets Canadiens, which is the well-renowned Montreal-based dance school. And with this story, this is going to go back to, I guess, my name being eponymous with the company name. When I went for my first interview with a CPA firm at the time called Clarkson Gordon, I remember being interviewed by this partner who saw my name and saw, I was starting to become a CPA and was looking to get a job at the firm. And he had asked me, well, what have your interests been when you were younger? And I said, well, I've always enjoyed dancing, and I've always enjoyed, and then I got a scholarship for Les Grands Ballets Canadiens as a ballerina. And he says, so why haven't you continued your dance career? And why didn't you, continue with Les Grands Ballets Canadiens? And why didn't you, whatever, rather than becoming an accountant? And I was like, okay, where's he going with this? It's like, at that time, I had no idea how much money ballerinas made, if they made, much or not, whatever. And I'm thinking, but how am I going to pay my bills on a ballerina salary? I mean, why is he even going there? I was so confused. And I think only later on in life did I realize that, he was basically saying what I have learned over the years is that with wealth comes choices, and you can choose to do something different. And if your career was more in ballet, and there's that other side of life where the arts and the culture side of things, is what people need as their downtime. And if that's what I was more inclined to do, then why did I go into accounting? Because was I pushed to it? Anyways, long story short, I obviously didn't get the job at Clarkson Gordon. I don't think he thought I was going to continue that route. And I don't remember the man's name, but I wish today he can see what I've accomplished, because I think I've done a lot more as a CPA tax professional than I would have done as a ballerina.
Very well said. So last question for you today, and that is, if you can tell our audience about your latest business endeavor, which is Chrysalia, like why you co-founded that business, and what things that business, as a chief learning and development office for enterprise and families, what are you really trying to accomplish for your clients in that business today?
So Thane, you hit on it in your introduction. Chrysalia was created to find a solution to that phenomenon of shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations, or what we call the rule of 92, or that you refer to in your statistics, where 90% of the families don't make it past the 3rd generation. So it's exactly for that reason that Chrysalia exists. As a Chief Learning and Development Officer, as an office, or CLDO, it's basically an addition to the C-suite. So you would hire, families have their advisory group of CEOs, CFOs, CIOs, whether it's at the family business side or at the family office side. So where most of these people are professionals in the financial world, none of them are professional in the human and social capital side. And that's why the CLDO brings the family down a journey, not just individually to know themselves as people, as individuals, but to know themselves within their family and others, but also to know themselves within the context that they live and work. When we talk about family members, which is the most important asset that a family has, it doesn't show up on the balance sheet, but it's like a resource. And if you don't work on that resource, it could get depleted and become obsolete. So then how do you help the family with its wellness not necessarily with its wealth, because there's enough people out there that are proficient in the wealth side. There's not enough people out there that are proficient enough on the wellness side. So wealth is only, it's just a means to an end. So in a nutshell, it's a trusted advisory team to the family. It helps each family member along their own family journey and the journey of the family as a whole as they set their objectives. And it's about transitioning, that to multi-generations, and each of their roles evolve over time. So as I mentioned earlier, depending on the age of the individual, yes, when they're younger, they think one way, but in their 20s, it's different. Then they get married, they have children, then what? Then they're older. I'm now, looking at my succession, my role is evolving and transitioning. So you would not hire a CIO one time to help you with your asset allocation and your investment strategy and present it to you and say, here you go, good luck. And if you have any questions, or if the markets are frothy or volatile, give me a call. Well, why would you do that for your CLDO? You're not going to hire them on a one time. So Chrysalia is there on a contract basis, on an ongoing, because your family resource, your family talent pool, your family members are constantly evolving as they get older with different needs and different things that are going on. So why not be there for them on an evolution process as their markets are frothy and volatile because of whatever's going on in a human's life, which we know is never consistent, but to help them along their journeys and guide them as they go through those transitions. As I mentioned, those transitions are the most vulnerable states. How do you help them and help the family come together so that they can help each other out and come out stronger at the end to achieve the objectives the family truly wants, whether it's being a legacy family or distributing everything out. I use the golden goose example where, you have a golden goose that's been giving you golden eggs for all these years. Well, you can either choose to keep the golden goose and distribute out the golden eggs to your family members, or one day you might say, you know what, this interdependency of this golden goose as to who has to take care of it, feed it, house it, do whatever, we're all fed up. We don't have, we don't want that anymore. We don't like this interdependency that we have and the dependency on. So why don't we just have a feast and cook that golden goose, have a huge feast, enjoy it, divide everything up and move on. And then this way I can come to the table when I want to, not because I have to. So there's no right or wrong answer. It's whatever you feel is right for you and your family. And then there's, many times that families prune the family tree because they say, okay, these are not the ones that are thinking the same as us. So do we need to prune or not? And what happens to those transitions as you prune? So Chrysalia truly is there to help the family along, not only the family's journey, but each individual family member's journey.
So in Italian terms, it sounds like Chrysalia is kind of like a consigliere in Italian terms, in that they're coming along as a trusted advisor to help through transitions and through challenges and the good times and the bad times. So, I think it's an invaluable service that you've and company that you've launched, Patricia, and I know one of your other partners is extremely gifted on the human behavioral side of things. So I wish you very well on that endeavor, because I think Chrysalia will have a growing audience over time. So Patricia, thank you. I wanted to sincerely thank you for your time today, for sharing, for being a little vulnerable in some of your answers and whatnot, but also sharing some of the things that you've learned along the way. And to those that are listening, I just wanted to, encourage you to take a look at our first podcast with Bruce Linton, this session, and also pass along to any friends or people that you think might enjoy it. But I wanted to thank you, Patricia, once again for being a wonderful guest, and have a wonderful day, everybody. Bye-bye for now. Thank you.
The comments expressed in this podcast are the results of work done by Stenner Wealth Partners. They may differ from the opinion of Canaccord Genuity Corp. And should not be considered as representative of Canaccord's beliefs, opinions, or recommendations. All views expressed in this podcast are provided for informational purposes only and do not constitute an offer or solicitation to buy or sell any securities. The statements expressed herein are not intended to provide tax, legal, or financial advice, and under no circumstances should be construed as a solicitation to act as a securities broker or dealer in any jurisdiction. All views are intended for general circulation only and do not have any regard to the specific investment objectives, financial situation, or general needs of any particular person, organization, or institution. Canaccord is a member of the CIPF.